The following audio contains graphic descriptions that may be disturbing to some listeners.
Oh my god,
What's that, sir?
I just shot my friend. I just blew his fucking brains out.
You shot your
I
friend?
blew his fucking brains out.
Okay, sir, hold on.
Oh my god, he's fucking dead, dude. He's fucking dead.
you do it?
Oh my god. Oh my god, Leo. Oh my fucking.
Hold on, okay?
Oh my fucking god.
Hold on, I'm gonna get
Oh
I'm
my
gonna get
fucking
Mr.
god.
Price on the line. Don't
Oh
hang
my
up,
fucking
okay?
god.
Don't hang
Oh
up.
my fucking god. I'm still.
Hold on, don't hang up.
Yes.
It's incident 7522. A male says that he just shot his friend in the head.
Forrest Lang. I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Kind of tell us who you are, and then we'll get into your story. We'll start with your childhood. This may run a little long, but we'll keep it as interesting as possible. But I want to kind of dive in, start with your childhood, kind of how that developed, and then we'll move into, I think, probably one of the most horrible aspects of your life, or I shouldn't say aspects, one of the most horrible things that happened to you in your life, and then we'll wrap up with how you're still here. So yeah, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Forrest Lang. I'm a tattooer, an author, speaker. I'm a dad, family man, and I live in La Jolla with my fiancé Kristen, who we've been together since I was 7. But
Okay.
fiancé, my daughter Grace, and our dog Kaspian. And I like motorcycles.
And I like motorcycles. I like motorcycles too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a veteran too.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So, so you grew up with how would you explain your childhood? Kind of walk us through how you grew up.
There was some poverty, broken home, pretty, I guess, severe physical abuse, incest, foster care, molestation, and then homelessness.
So why
Addiction.
don't you kind of talk? So in your book, you talk a lot about your childhood and how that developed. And so why don't you kind of walk us through the cliff notes of that and help everybody to understand?
Gotcha. Well, can I start with the reason why I feel like it's important?
Absolutely. Yeah. Start however you feel.
I got sober like 22 years ago in 12-step programs,
Mhm.
and I used to tell my story all the time, right? And I would just skip childhood because I don't want to talk about it. I don't
Right.
think it was relevant to sit and talk about what mommy and daddy did when I was 5 years old, and
Right.
how I'm so sad. Like I didn't feel like that was a relevant thing. And who wants to talk about that? So after I got home from the war, I built a business, family, all these things, right? Like the connection with others, community, tribe. And I really had a hard time fully connecting with people. I kept people very much at an arm's distance. I didn't know if I wanted to. I just automatically, like, I was a narcissistic bully in my relationships. And it's either my way or the highway. You want what I got, you'll do what I do. Sit down and shut up, right?
Why do you think that was?
Well, because I don't want to get close to anybody. And in 2015, I found myself in the attic of my failing business with a pistol to my head. And I just wanted the pain to stop. Right? And there was a whole series of things that happened, like the abandonment, the stress.
Yeah. So let's kind of get into some of those. Okay, go
Just
ahead.
real quick. So I went through a treatment at Save a Warrior, and it was a 5-day treatment for PTSD. And they never talked about the war. All these guys that sat in that circle talked about all the things, like we were only allowed to talk about what life was like up until the age of 18. So because of how much that stuff impacts our life, later on and how alone I wasn't. There were like 13 other guys there who had all the same stuff happen to them, who were all suicidal. I was like, oh, maybe that's important to start facing and dealing with that
Right.
stuff. So I just feel like I want to explain the why first before we get into the
Yeah,
what.
absolutely. Okay.
So
So that's a big deal. Just
yeah.
knowing how you grew up and how it shaped you.
And I've been volunteering with suicidal vets since,
Good.
and I would say 85% of them have a lot of similarities to, you know, the abandonment, neglect, poverty, um, prison systems. They got sexual assault at a young age. Like it's very, very rampant
Yeah.
in our community, especially the ones that are suffering with suicidal ideation.
I think a lot of that is when a lot of us who joined the military were trying to escape something, right?
Well, there's another school that doesn't like to think that way about it. That's more about service. It's both,
Yeah.
And I know some people who join just to serve because it's their family thing, but um, there's also this other
Right.
group of us that were playing the Hunger Games, and
Yeah.
I wanted to get out of the neighborhood I was in. I wanted to achieve and succeed, and I was willing to die to do
Yeah. I think you and I have a lot of similarities in that regard. Um, I think for us, we were trying to get out and get away from. I know for me personally, I was trying to get away from that childhood,
that.
and what better way, like you say, than to join the military, get because that cuts all ties,
Hmm.
and then you go on.
Yeah,
And
gives me family now.
Yeah, exactly.
I have my own bed.
Yep.
I have this uniform. We take care of our own. I have a tribe, a family.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you grew up in LA. Is that
Ventura County.
Ventura County?
Yeah,
Okay.
Oxnard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, so Oxnard,
Yeah.
and then you grew up. You started out with your mom,
Hmm.
and then you started getting abused by your brother.
Hmm.
So you wanna-
And mom.
Well, you were, yeah,
My older brother started. He started making me like perform oral sex on him when I was like 4 years old, and um, I used to not even be able to say that without having like a really visceral reaction,
yeah,
like a really, and it's still not comfortable to talk about that because of the level of betrayal and um, how could I ever be a man if that happened to me, right?
yeah.
And so yeah, he did that for years.
How did that start?
I just have little memories of being a little boy in the bathroom and him doing that, but uh, and then I didn't really even understand what that was when I was that little. And I'm pretty sure it went on until I was like 9 years old or 10 years old, until I was big enough and I started to think, um, understand like what that meant. And I wasn't doing that anymore.
Good for you to be able to have that mental fortitude to stand up for
Well,
yourself.
I mean, I was a kid. I shouldn't have had to.
100% agree.
So
Your mom didn't make it a whole lot easier, though, right?
no, I had no trust with her with anything because anything I did was bad. Anything that we did was bad. And she always said, I don't know when you boys are gonna learn. Like that constant stress of like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but it's something. And that's not any way to treat a kid, bro.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's just it was a gnarly, like the perfect storm of um neglect, poverty, abuse together just to make life really miserable.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. After listening to your book, it seems like a harrowing ordeal for sure, for lack of a better word, right? And then you went from being with your mom to fighting, and then trying to run away a couple of times,
Yeah.
and then finding a foster family.
Well, these girls I met at the pool back in the day. I mean, this was a fun thing that we did. You used to pay a quarter to go swim at the pool in the summertime.
Okay.
And we met these girls and their auntie. So their auntie was really cool and let everybody sneak out and go over there and watch movies and smoke weed. And we should sneak out and go over there with them. And so I did. And I kept sneaking out and going over to this person's house. And eventually I started running away and going over there.
When you want to elaborate on that a little bit more?
Well, she was a pedophile.
Was she doing that before you?
Yeah.
She was.
Oh,
so
yeah.
There was other
There was always young boys around her place.
Did anybody talk to you about that?
Later on, yeah.
Later on.
Yeah, but none of them have come forward. I know there was another one after me too. A lot of times though, man, boys, when it's a woman, they don't feel that they don't feel that the harm that it caused them is justified, and they're allowed to acknowledge that because they were a boy and they were lucky, right?
Right.
So a lot of times men won't even talk about it, or the way they'll talk about it is like what we think other men think that we should say.
Right.
And it was fucking horrible, dude. Like,
so I know it's really traumatizing. There's a lot of emotion in that.
Yeah.
Can you kind of unpack that the beginnings of it, how it started? And
so
then,
the beginning, she was really nice to me. I mean, that was awesome, right? There's somebody who's being nice to me, who buys me things, who scratches my back, who tells me that my mom was bad and my stepdad was bad and they shouldn't have done those things to me. They shouldn't have beat the shit out of me. They, should have fed me. They shouldn't have not like just the weirdness of the way.
So let's back up a little bit. So what was your mom and your stepfather doing that caused you to feel like you had to get away?
Well, they hit me. My mom read the Bible, and my stepdad was like a really big dude, and she read the Bible while I was bent over a picnic bench, and this dude was hitting me with a board so hard that like I still limp from that, bro. Just over the top, where you say, "Oh yeah, you spank your kids," right? Like that's pretty different.
My mom had what's called a mean mom paddle, and it was a
Yeah.
paddle about this long, and it had a handle with electrical tape.
Mhm.
It had holes drilled in it. It said mean mom paddle. And we used to have to assume the position.
Yeah.
Like pull our pants, get the whole thing. So I understand.
Yeah. It's not a great thing to do to kids.
No.
Doesn't build resilience and responsibility and discipline. That was a horror show. And then she started leaving. Like her and my stepdad started fighting, and then she's just gone for like a week at a time. Just so I was alone.
So you were always alone.
Yeah, and that's when
Was there food in the house when they left? No.
I mean, a little bit, not like.
Still had to go find something.
Yeah. It wasn't like there was a completely empty, cupboards and all that stuff, but there was
some top ramen or something.
No top ramen. There was like cereal but no milk.
Peanut butter, no jelly.
Yeah,
no
like that, no bread. Yeah, pretty much. So I just munched on some cereal, or like I ate like a can of pineapple chunks.
No. What is it about poor kids? We all had pineapple chunks.
Dude,
in our pantry.
That was like a staple for poor
Yeah, it must have been.
I still have not eaten pineapple chunks as an adult.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I love pineapple on my pizza, but that's about the only time I
Yeah.
really eat it.
Yeah, I don't want to eat pineapple chunks out of a can.
That's so funny.
Okay, so yeah, there was this neglect, and a lot of it was so like hard to put my finger on that there was something bad, right? Like the trip to SeaWorld. So I don't remember like the plan, but I was in the van. My
So you
stepdad had
gotta
this,
elaborate because nobody knows what we're talking about.
so childhood, right?
Uh-huh.
So I didn't understand how this was messed up when I was a little kid and why I was running away and why I felt it was bad. I
Right.
wasn't allowed to talk about what happened with my brother because my mother was always calling me a faggot and these faggots and faggots and faggots and faggots, right? So I thought once I figured it out that that made me a faggot. So I would get punished more because of what my brother did to me, which is probably true. Um, we were going to SeaWorld with my stepfather, and I was pretty young. We're driving south to San Diego to go to SeaWorld. We get to SeaWorld, they're fighting. My stepdad says, "Oh, I'm going to take my son, which is my little brother, his real son, into SeaWorld for a minute. I'll be right back." And comes back 4 hours later, and they're all stoked. And then we drive home, right? So I was going to
Oh
SeaWorld,
wow.
and I was like 9 years old or 10 years old in a van, super stoked that we're going to go to a theme park. We're going to go somewhere to SeaWorld. And we sit in the parking lot. It's hot. I don't have any water. Like my mom's devastated and upset and crying that this dude took her son inside. I'll be right back, and didn't come back until they were all done with SeaWorld and we drove home.
So your mom was in the car with you, and it was
Yes.
you and your
My
your
older brother
older brother.
and the little brother, their son. And he
Uh-huh.
said, "I'll be right back." And he went into SeaWorld
And so your mom, so it's you, your mom, and your older brother now
sitting in the car.
sitting in the car for 4 hours.
Yeah. And then he comes back and they fight the whole way home.
What was your mom saying about that?
She was very upset. But I don't really recall other than I was really stoked to go to SeaWorld, but it was like a 3 hour car ride, 4 hours in the car, and then a 3 hour car ride home. That's what my life was like. Right.
Yeah.
So it was complex. It wasn't like, "Oh, he stabbed me."
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it was all the neglect and abuse, like mental and physical abuse and verbal abuse and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's all of these.
So that's why it's also difficult to talk about, right? Because it takes longer than, I mean, there's easy ways to say it.
Yeah.
I got molested, I got beat up, I got neglected, right?
Yeah.
And what did that train my brain to believe I was worthy of?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you find this woman who's telling you all the right things. She's saying, they shouldn't have done this to you. I'm not going to let that happen to you anymore.
Mhm.
Come over here.
I'll protect you.
The first time that she molested you, what was the scene? Where were you guys sitting? How was that? How did that play
I
out?
don't like to go into like really explicit details about that stuff, but she started with like touching my arm, right? Over time, scratching my back. The way pedophiles move in is they do something called grooming, right?
Mhm.
Where first keeping secrets. Those other people are bad. I'll take care of you. Here's some candy. And simple as that, right?
Right.
Like I'll buy you sodas and take you to the movies and tell you what a great person you are and how those. And they usually go after kids who are neglected and abandoned, right? So that's what she did. And then it went to back scratching. I just want to hold you, to sexual contact. And then once sexual contact happened, then it was just that all the time.
Wow. How long did that go on? How old were you when it started?
12.
You were 12 years old when it started.
Yeah.
So you were already smoking weed,
Drinking.
You were already drinking,
Mhm.
and you'd run away at one
I was
point.
already cutting myself. Already having bouts of pretty severe depression. Already very paranoid. I slept with my shoes on. I wanted to be able to get away and run away. I didn't want anyone to hit me. I was afraid all the time, and I felt guilty all the time. because I had run away from my
That's
mother.
so tough for a 12-year-old to have to go through. I couldn't imagine having to go through that, but you coped with it as best you
I was
could.
really quiet, and I was a special needs kid. I didn't like to engage with other people. I like to hide out in the closet and listen to music. So I went days without talking. I didn't like to shower or brush my teeth. I mean, th- there were visible signs.
Right.
And that and CPS saw all those signs and took me away. And here's this savior, right? This person that will just take this kid because nobody wants a 12-year-old kid, right?
Right.
Um,
And so she's molesting you, but you're still calling her to pick you up when CPS takes you away.
mhm.
You feel like that although that's happening, that's your only safe spot.
Yeah, I didn't mind that was happening. I mean, it wasn't fun. I wasn't like looking forward to that. It was just something that I had to do.
In order to have a place.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many people, because people on social media say things that they would be afraid to say in person, right?
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many dudes asked me if she was hot. Was she hot? Right? Now, I was 12.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
and I never answered that question. I drew a picture of her in the hardcover of my book, and you can decide whether or not for yourself if that monster looks hot.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Um, so and then so this continues until you're what age?
I think 15 and a half.
15 and a half.
Yeah, because freshman year started, I started to get interested in girls. She started to get really jealous and think that every girl I was hanging out with was a girlfriend, or I didn't even sleep with anybody, man. I wasn't interested in sex. Like, sex was something that was ugly, and I didn't want to do that
You
with
don't hear that
somebody.
from a lot of guys,
Well, I mean, my whole
but it's
experience
understandable,
of
obviously.
it, yeah. I mean, I didn't want to do that with someone I liked, right? Because I was actually having a good time. I don't want to
Yeah, yeah, that's fair.
feel those ugly feelings. And there, the one thing, because I sit and reflect about what is the damage that, other than like later, like during, what hurt, right? Show me on your body where it hurt. And the thing that I felt when actual molestation, sexual assault, whatever you want to call that,
So was there
as a
was there
kid,
sex going on too, or was it
yeah,
okay?
yeah, is I felt a really, really intense hollowness in my stomach,
Hmm.
like a hollow emptiness. That's what I felt when that shit was going on. So I didn't want to feel that with a pretty girl from school, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and my foster mom would like show up places where I was, honking the horn, screaming at me, leaving weird like messages, call around looking for me, have other kids spy on me to find out where I was, what I was doing, who was there.
Other kids in the house?
No, other kids in the neighborhood.
Oh,
Um, and eventually I started seeing a girl and I hid it from her. She found out and she tried to kill me in a murder suicide, and I got away.
wait, let's not breeze past that.
Yeah.
So uh, unpack that.
So my foster mom told me we were going to take a ride, and we got in her minivan. She was driving super crazy and running red lights and like passing cars, going like 110 miles an hour down 25-mile-per-hour roads. And she said that she was going to heading towards Magoo Rock, which is about, I don't know, 12-minute ride from the foster home, maybe 15, if I remember right. And she was going to drive us off that rock, and we were both going to die. And I put my foot across on the brake, and the car, like, the van, like, spun out, and what road were we on? Maybe Rose Avenue or something like that. And there were, I know for sure there were strawberry fields where we were, and trees, eucalyptus trees. And she was like hitting me and screaming at me. I got the car stopped and put the shifter into park. I took the keys, I got out of the car, and I threw the keys as hard as I could, and I took off and ran and got away. And later that night, I snuck back to, I hid in the bushes across the street from her house, my house. And when she left, I went inside and packed a duffel bag and left. And I was on my own, 16 years old.
16 years old.
Mhm.
And where did you go?
I went to a shopping center and went to sleep on a bench because it was already kind of late. And the next night, I stayed at my buddy Squiggy's house. His mom had died and left him an inheritance, and he was like 17 or 18 and had his own apartment. The night after that, I stayed at my friend James's house, and I just kind of started doing the couch shuffle.
Okay. And then, and you were already carrying a pistol by this point. You felt like you needed to.
I didn't have a gun yet.
You didn't have a gun. Oh, okay, so that wasn't the point.
Yeah, I didn't get a gun until I was 17.
Okay, so you're pretty close.
Mhm.
So, you leave her house, and then you start couch surfing,
Mhm.
and then what happens after that?
I was working at a movie theater. Wasn't enough money. I dropped out of school.
And you're doing all sorts of drugs at this point.
Yeah, whatever. I like to drink, but whatever was there. There was a liquor store on Woolly Avenue that sold to anybody, dude. Like, Geraldo Rivera busted that liquor store. He sent like an 8-year-old in to buy like a bottle of Jack, and they sold it to him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
oh man.
but we used to go there and get booze, or I had like some older friends from the movie theater that kind of looked out for me and bought alcohol. And I got a job working at Sears from 5 a.m. till 1 p.m. stocking shelves.
And then at some point you start to go down the sober path, right?
That wasn't till later. Yeah, I tried hitting a couple meetings when I was like 17, but I wasn't anywhere near ready to get sober, and I wasn't aware, man. Like, I've learned a little bit about the brain as I've gotten older and looked into this stuff, and my limbic system was completely running my life, right? The emotions, the programs, the whatever. I didn't have a lot of awareness yet to what I was doing. So I was just a wild animal, dude. Just drinking, fighting, hiding, running, trying to get a little bit of food and a little bit of money. I mean,
So at what point did you decide that you wanted to get sober?
So I hit a cop when I was in the Navy, and I got away with it ish. And they brought me back to Balboa Hospital where I was working as a corpsman. And I decided that it was the right thing to do to get sober. So I asked if I could go to rehab.
So let's dive into that. So you decided before all of that, you decided that you were going to join the Navy.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the Navy would take me without a high school diploma. So that's the one I picked.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Oh wow, they made me get a good enough diploma.
I took the
Not the
CHSPE. It's a California high school proficiency exam, and that was good enough for the Navy, not any other branch.
Yeah, the Army made me get a good enough diploma.
Yeah.
So then you joined the Navy as a corpsman,
Mhm.
and that was in what, 98?
Yeah. 96.
96.
Yeah.
Okay.
I joined in October of 96. Got stationed here in San Diego. Drinking age was 18. I mean, it was on, right? I just tried to not do drugs as much as I could. Sometimes I blacked out and smoked some weed or did some acid or something like that. And then I got sober for the first time because I went to SARP down there in San Diego, and I wasn't ready, man. Like, I didn't meet the right people. The right things didn't happen for me to be able to get honest, right? And let people in. I was really afraid of people, dude. I didn't want anybody to hurt me. I didn't want to trust anybody. I thought everybody was just out for themselves. They're saying all these things, but they're just looking for what they can get over on me. I don't trust them. And my relationships were really tough. I was afraid to leave, which I still don't like quite. I'm not a shrink, so I understand what the thing is. Where if a girl tells me she's going to kill herself if I leave, I'm afraid to leave.
Right.
And I stayed clean and sober for almost 2 years without completing the 12 steps, without like getting to a place where I had any kind of relief. And I just was suicidal and homicidal and psychotic, and I decided that AA was the problem and decided to go have some drinks. And 3 months later, I was back and just completely hopeless. And I met my friend Thomas, and I had 2 requirements. In the 12-step groups, you get a sponsor, right, when you get there. And the sponsor is supposed to help you do the 12 steps and kind of show you the ropes. And you call this person every day, check in with them. They're kind of like a pseudo life coach that they have. And some people like take it to like extreme levels where they're just going on. You see like the TV shows where they're just going to rescue their sponsee before they take that drink or whatever. I had 2 requirements for a sponsor. They had to have been molested as a kid, and they had to have done ecstasy, because that was the only time I ever felt good in my life, when I was on E.
So you wanted somebody who could relate.
Yes, who could understand
on multiple levels.
Yeah, and I found that person, and the way Thomas talked to me, I could understand, and I could believe him because he had been through the same things. And even though it really pissed me off for him to say, dude, you're selfish, right? You're a selfish, self-centered person, and that's your problem. Your problem is you're selfish. I was like, what? Right? Like, all these things happened to me that I just trusted you to tell you all these things, and you're telling me I'm selfish? Like, what? You want to take it outside, right? Yeah. And he's like, well, dude, I'm selfish too. And I get to work on that too. Like, we all are, man. Like, he would explain past my defense and my craziness. And I was like, oh, well, okay, all of us here like that. It's not just me. You're not just telling me I'm that. And here's the way that we get beyond this selfishness, right? We're of service. We admit, because when you tell a lie, Forrest, I want you to immediately tell the person you just told the lie to that you lied to them.
God, that's hard.
And I did.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh God.
And I did. I was just feeling the shame and like.
Well, you have to sit in that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah. Things like that. Okay. And I started to really get some relief where I wasn't feeling suicidal. I was starting to feel good. I was like having sex with girls and not freaking out about that, right? Like not feeling that just ugliness. And then being able to be friends with them afterwards was pretty cool, right? Like, not I'm never going to talk to you again because this thing happened. You're gone out of my life.
Yeah.
And I started to learn how to be vulnerable with people. I didn't know how to do that before. Like right now, me and you are sitting here in this room having this podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
I drove up here, like I still feel like I'm kind of in a hazy fog, right? Like I'm just a little bit early for me to be out doing this stuff. I'm nervous. I'm thinking like, are these people I'm talking to that are listening right now, do they give a shit about what I'm saying? Am I an idiot? Right?
Right.
Like, am I performing well? Am I able to feel and connect with you during this conversation? Because I feel a little bit numb right now.
Right.
and that's what vulnerability is, right? Like what's actually really happening right now, and it takes the pressure out
Right.
from what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're in the moment. You're present.
Mm-hmm.
That helps out quite a bit.
Yeah, even if I'm like halfway disassociating, like we just talked about a bunch of stuff from my childhood, and like I can't feel my face right now, bro. Like,
Really?
yeah, I go
You need to
numb.
take a break?
Yeah, maybe let's take a break for a minute.
Yeah, let's take a break.
Yeah.
We're back.
All right.
All right. Now that I can't remember where we left off.
Left off with getting sober.
Did you want to grab your water? I think you left your water out there.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Okay. So we left off with getting sober.
Mm-hmm. And so I was going to junior college. I got out of the Navy. I was honorably just discharged, and I always wanted to be an artist since I was a little kid. I wanted to do maybe like illustrations for books or commercial art. And so I started taking art classes at the junior college, and I was 4 months sober, and me and Thomas were hanging out, my friend who was sponsoring me and helping me out and introducing me to his friends and making me a part of. And we went to a AA meeting. We were hanging out with our friend Alina. We went to go pick her up. We got to my house about 11:30 and went inside, and we're going to watch a movie. And back then, we didn't have cell phones as much, right? Like a few people had cell phones, but this is 2000. And so it wasn't like a common thing. People still had landlines, and I had an answering machine. And I walked over to go check my messages on my machine. I hit the play button, and the message started to play, and then it stopped. And I was like, huh? And I hit play again, and then it stopped again. I'm like, what's wrong? And I look at Thomas, and he's got the cradle to the phone, the receiver. And so if you were to press play on that machine and then you hit the talk button on the receiver, it stops. Right. And I was like, I turn around, I'm like, dude, give me that phone. Like, you do it. You know, and he's like, yeah, fuck you. And he like points it at me like a gun. And so I'm like, oh yeah. And I reach into my drawer. It's got my Glock 26. And it had a full it had a magazine in, right? And I didn't check it right. The way you check to see if something's loaded is you would drop the magazine, rack it back, look and feel. I racked it back with the magazine and it stayed in the locked back position, indicating that the Glock is unloaded. And I made a really horrendous, awful mistake. I racked it back. I was like, oh, unloaded, magazine in, lock back in the back position. I depressed it forward and I pointed it at my friend and I said, give me the phone. He goes, fuck you, dude. And sticks his finger in the barrel, points the receiver back at me like a gun. We're both laughing. And I pull the trigger, and the loudest bang I've ever
Was
heard.
his finger still in the?
No.
Okay.
I pulled the trigger and a hole appeared in his head and the back of his head blew out. And he died in my arms. I put pressure on the back of his head and on the front to stop the bleeding. Held him. I think I called 911. I called 911 with the other hand. It's hard to really like remember exactly.
You put the 911 call in your book.
I did.
In the audio version.
Yeah.
That's tough to hear.
Yeah.
It's got to be even tougher for you to relive.
Well, I've done it over and over and over again. And developed some resilience to be able to function. And then be able to talk about it. Done a lot of like EMDR and exposure therapy to it. We found the 911 tape right when I was making the audiobook for Angel Blue. and I recorded myself listening to it the first time, and then I watched myself listening to it when I was ready, and then I watched myself listen to it over and over and over and over and over again until I could edit it, because I wanted to edit it myself. I didn't want other traffic in there that wasn't from the 911 call. And, you know, I did the whole book myself, bro. Like I had people helping me, but it wasn't like a publishing company doing it. So
So you're to bring it back, and I know it's a little hard to talk about, but
Yeah.
so you're holding
my
your
friend,
friend, your
giving him my,
sponsor.
and dude, you know what the fucked up thing is? Like, all I could think, because dude wouldn't harm a soul, man. And when all this blood was gushing out of his head and he was gurgling, the only thing I think is, but he's vegan, right? Like, but this guy, but he's vegan. Now that was the thought that was in my head.
Because he wouldn't hurt a fly.
Yeah. And he was dead, and it was my fault. And I maintained enough composure, even though I was screaming, to keep pressure on the back of his head. And then when he started to seize, I kept yelling at him to stop, because when somebody has a GSW to the head, they'll like, you ever tried to make your face red? Where you're like,
Yeah.
to hold your breath. And when that happened, when he was doing that, more blood and brain was coming out of the front hole. And I kept his body alive. I mean, in my mind at the time, I was hoping to save his life. It didn't really like all the way hit home that there was no hope and no chance. But I did keep his body alive, and they were able to harvest his organs and save some lives with what he had that wasn't destroyed.
Right. And so you set the phone down, and Alina picks up the phone, and she starts. I don't know how she was so calm.
You can hear at the end when the police officers come, she starts to, you know, I think that it's shock, right?
Yeah. She was super calm. So she started talking to the 911 dispatcher. She went downstairs and opened the gate for the police officers to come in, and the paramedics. And then the paramedics or police, is it
The police got there first,
Okay.
and they just let me keep doing CPR. And then once the paramedics came, they told me I had to let go of him. And I didn't want to let go.
Let it out, man. It's okay.
And when I let go of him, everything else came out of his head. Like, they didn't even put handcuffs on me. I mean, the cop even like, everybody knew it was a fucking accident, right? A preventable accident, and something that was really stupid and irresponsible. But I never I never had any suspicion or thought, or even, I would have just as soon pointed that at me. I was 100% sure that was an empty gun. And I don't ever recall pointing a gun at anybody before that I didn't intend to, pointing a gun anywhere that I didn't intend to
pull the trigger.
Yeah. Or since. And then I went to downtown, and after the interrogation.
So
charged
so
him with murder.
they're trying to rescue him. Paramedics have him now,
Yeah,
and then so the police pull you to the side and they start talking to you about what happened, or
I don't remember.
okay, so
I threw up off the balcony. I I think that the cops were pretty clear on what happened. I think Alina, you know,
kind of her
yeah,
testimony towards the whole thing.
yeah. I mean, the picture was pretty clear that it was an accident, unless you had like the best actors in the.
But so then for whatever reason they decide that they're going to charge you with first degree murder.
Well, the cops there don't decide that. So
The attorney.
the cops
right.
take me downtown, and then a detective is assigned, and because um, that's what they do when any like I don't think I've heard of an accidental shooting where there wasn't a criminal charge, except unless maybe you're like rich like Alec Baldwin or something.
He just got away with that too.
Well,
They
I don't
just-
I don't know what the deal is with that.
Yeah,
You know, I
they
don't
dropped all the charges.
yeah, I don't know if it was I don't none of my business. I don't care.
Yeah, that's got to be
Um
it's got to be tough for him to live with as well.
yeah. Yeah. I mean but that's a different breed of people, man. I don't even know if it's tough. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? So they charge you with first degree murder. They charge you with second degree murder, aggravated or
Voluntary
voluntary
manslaughter
manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter.
and involuntary manslaughter. Yeah. So when I'm in the detective station or in the interrogation room,
Mhm.
they just charge me with first, right? And then they bring formal charges later in like an indictment,
Mhm.
right? So the detective decides, after consulting with her superiors and the district attorney's office, that they want to go for first. And so then I go to jail. And then later, when the formal indictment comes out and they start to get ready to prosecute, they added a firearm enhancement where if there's a firearm used in the commission of a violent felony, it's an extra 10 years. So then they charge me with first with the enhancement, second with the enhancement, manslaughter with the enhancement, and involuntary with the enhancement. So the lowest amount of time I was looking at was 15. The highest was 35 to life.
It's tough.
I didn't care. I still trip on it now, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
45. I would still be waiting another 14 years for parole if they
Yeah,
for the possibility
for the
of
possibility.
parole. But I didn't care. I didn't care at all. Like my friend was dead. It was my fault. I was, in grief that my friend was dead, and in such like an incredible self-hate shock that I caused that didn't really mean much to me at the time. I thought I deserved to die. And there were other people from the 12-step program that rallied around me and took care of me. And, what my friend's dad bailed me out.
Yeah,
Which is unbelievable. I couldn't believe, they were trying to put together, like, we didn't have GoFundMe then, but everybody was saying, hey, I'll put 1,000, I'll put 200, I'll put whatever. And they were raising money to bail me out. And my friend, her dad was just so happy that she had gotten hanging out with us and was getting clean and doing well. And he was like, I'll just bail him out.
and he put his house up for you.
He did. Yeah, Dennis. And dude, he lost both of his kids, man, to addiction. Both of them. One to suicide and one to an overdose.
Even after you'd helped her out.
A lot of us don't make it, man.
Yeah,
A lot of my friends are dead.
Yeah,
A lot of people don't make it from places like you and me came from.
yeah. So then they reach a verdict, and you're at your
So yeah, a year later, there's trial. They did a full jury trial. I had a really good public defender, this guy Vic. He's freaking awesome, and he was really good about explaining stuff to me so I could understand, just breaking all this stuff down so I could really understand what was going on. And my friend Jordan, his mom Marie, took care of me and really like I became her mission in life. I call her mom today. I call her on Mother's Day.
Good.
We text and talk, and
Right.
she's like one of the mothers that I have in my life. And so the attorney told me that I could get guaranteed 10 years in prison. He said this is probably a really good deal. You can plead guilty to voluntary manslaughter, and they'll just give you 10 years, and we'll call this done. But you have to say that you did it on purpose. You have to say that you thought there was a possibility, so this is what you'll be saying, that you had some idea that what you were doing could cause harm to your friend. And I didn't, there's no way I could lie about that. No way. And so I would rather do 35 to life than say I did it on purpose to get some kind of like break, right?
Right.
And she said, okay, we're going to trial. There was a whole, like a super emotional trial that lasted like 2 weeks. And at the very end of it, the court reporter got the verdict, and nobody knows, right? Like when there's a trial, like no one knows what's happening except the jurors. You're not.
Right.
And so they hand the verdict, like it's this whole tense thing. And the court reporter starts reading, and she goes, for the count of first-degree murder, we find the defendant not guilty, and we find that the defendant did not personally use a firearm.
In the commission of a felony.
No, they just said did not use a firearm. That's how they read it. And then for the count of second-degree murder, and then I could see she starts to like break down, starts crying, and she's bawling, dude. And then the judge is like takes the verdict, and he reads the rest, and he was not guilty on every single thing. And the judge said, we have seen something about like justice is good or something like that. Thank you for everybody for participating. Blah blah blah. Thank the jury. Forrest Lang, you're dismissed.
And this is a bittersweet moment for you, right? Because it's
I didn't know what I was supposed to do, man. I gave away all my shit. I was ready to go to prison. Like I wanted to. That sounds weird, right? But I wanted to get punished.
Yeah.
And I just told the truth. Like when I was on the stand, they were like, "Do you feel like you deserve to go to prison?" I was like, "Yeah." And I didn't know what to do. I'd like given away all my stuff, broke up with my girlfriend, right? I left my car double parked outside with the keys in it.
Oh wow, you really?
I was ready, yeah. I thought I was going into custody and going to prison. So I'm like, well, what do I do now? Dude, and then the prosecutor came up to me and she's like, do you think there's anything I could have done better? Like, I thought it was really weird.
Being a bitch.
I just said, well, you could have told the truth.
Yeah, there you go.
Because she kept trying to make me out to be like this bad guy or like this evil person, or like she'd come up with all these weird, she was all over the place. And I was like, you could have just told the truth.
That's weird that she would come up to you like that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that somebody would normally do that.
I've only been to one murder trial.
Yeah. That's fair. That's nuts that somebody would do that. Like, that's such an emotional thing for you. And then she's just, this is the job.
Yeah. Well, she did weird shit, man. Like she put a picture of a big picture, like, how they have the big, huge, of a postmortem picture of my friend. So I'm sitting like, she's on the right, I'm on the left, and she like walks into the courtroom and sets down a picture of my dead friend right in front of me and then goes to her desk. Like she did weird shit like that. And I started fucking freaking out, like losing. I started like screaming and shit. Like I'm like, oh, and the judge like said, get that out of here. What are you doing? She did weird shit. And I don't know what the point is for that. Maybe just to see if have a reaction or maybe to shake me up. So, I don't know.
So then you get out of court. What do you do?
I went to my car got in, drove over to Aunt Bo's house, and then someone got a phone call that one of our friends had an AK-47, was really upset that uh, I got acquitted, that I should probably lay low, and I didn't really have a place to live. I didn't have anything going on. I want to be an artist. Now I have a new chance at life. Art Center's in Pasadena. It's a really cool design college that one of my bandmates went to when I was like younger. I was in like death metal bands when I was younger too. We would talk about that.
Yeah.
But one of my bandmates went there and was a successful illustrator, and I was like, well, like, I guess I'll go to Pasadena. And so I drove to Pasadena and slept in the Angeles National Forest, and was homeless. I just left everything and everybody. My buddy Seth came with me. He was my sponsee. I met him when he had a blue mohawk and no front teeth, and was eating out of trash cans. And so I had started sponsoring somebody after I turned a year sober, and he came with me because he really knew how to be homeless. And so we got up to LA, stayed the night, and then the next day he's like, "Ladies and gentlemen, kick my ass for $1." Like he was like, or I will knock down this wall for $1. And so he'd like knock, 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 knock down the wall. And we got enough money for some food. And then we made a sign that said spare change for drugs and alcohol. And people were like, at least you're being honest.
But you're not being honest at all.
No, yeah. But Seth was like, we got to tell them we're drinking. They won't believe it if we're, really
Right.
just like, nobody will believe that, bro.
Yeah.
So I got enough money for 2 cans of spray paint, black and white, some 5x7 index cards, an X-Acto knife, a brush, a bucket, and a scraper. And I cut out numbers on these little 4x6 cards. And I went to the rich neighborhood, went door to door, and I was like, "Hi, I'm in the neighborhood spray painting address curbs. Would you like your address curve spray painted for $10?"
Oh wow.
And I built a little hustle doing that. So I would work until I got 10 houses a day, $100. And it's expensive to be like living in the car. And then we had friends in the program who like let us stay, like the 12-step program. They let us stay on their couch or whatever. And he got a job as a security guard at some seedy porn shop. And we started like just working and hustling, trying to save money. And I think we did that for like 9 months or so. And then we finally got enough for an apartment, and this dude rented us a place, but I think we gave him like $1,800. It's so hard to save that on the street, dude. Like that is really hard to save up that much money.
Oh yeah.
And the dude bailed with it, and he didn't even own the apartment.
Oh man.
And we were like, oh,
Hell.
and I was thinking, right? So Afghanistan happened, the invasion of Afghanistan happened while I was on trial. And Marie, she's like, maybe they'll just let you go. Like they'll let you off this if you go into the military. They're like, no way. And that just kind of had me thinking. And then Iraq started, and I was like, I'm a loser. I've got nothing. I'm 20 something years old, 24 years old. And I'm just gonna, even though I'm sober, I hate myself, and I'm probably not gonna get into art school. I can't even get like a place to live. Maybe I could go back in the military and I could go die in the war, right? Because I can't kill myself because I promised Thomas I wouldn't kill myself, right?
Right.
I don't want to drink because I've done the 12 steps, and that's just isn't any longer a thing that I want to do. But maybe I could like do some heroic thing, right? Like when I worked at Balboa Hospital down in the lobby where the elevators are, they had all the Medal of Honor recipients that were hospital corpsmen. It's the most highly decorated group of people in the United States military, the hospital
wow.
corps. And most of the medals are posthumous. If you guys don't know, that means it means after you're dead, right? And I was like, maybe I can get on that wall. And then when people remember me, they won't remember this loser that accidentally killed his friend, that messed up his life, that can't ever get anything right, all the things I believed about myself. They'll only remember that. And I went to the reserve recruiter, and they said since there wasn't a conviction, I could get back in. And so I did. I got back in via the reserves and volunteered for activation to go to war.
And then you went.
I did, yeah. Well, when I first got recalled, it's probably good that I didn't go right away because I was pretty out of shape. I went to Miramar and worked at the clinic, just giving out vaccines, like managing medical records, and that was a year long. And I got back in shape. I got reacclimated to military culture, and when that year ended, I called the detailer. Do you guys have detailers in the Army? Did they call them that? The people who give you your orders and stuff?
Oh, I don't know what they call it. They ask.
In the Navy and the Marine Corps, they call the person who like assigns orders to you a detailer.
Okay.
And so I called the detailer and I was like, look, you guys got any room to go with like 1st Marine Division or anything like that? And she's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. She goes, okay, if that's what you want. And then I got orders to Lima Company 324 and then deployed to Iraq with them. Didn't get to die though. War was kind of boring compared to
shucks.
Did you think it was gonna be like?
So I was infantry. So when I went, it was my first tour was December 2006 or December 2005 to December 2006.
There was still some action happening.
And there was a lot of action going on. So, but we were in a little town called Adaluya, south of Balad.
Mm-hmm.
And we took over a battalion size AO with a company.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of action, but we had a lot of the Kurdish army for support, and we had the Georgian army.
Gotcha.
No offense to any Georgians out there, but we used to call them
gnarly.
We used to call them the bread eaters, right? Because we would go out on patrol for like 12 hours, maybe 6 hours. I don't know. So however long we went. And we would get convoys with hot chow with mermites every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how we would get our hot chow. And by the time we got back from patrol, the Georgians, who were just pulling perimeter security, had eaten all of the bread.
Oh no.
And so we didn't get any bread. There was some, but not enough for everybody.
How did you guys stop them from just killing everything that came near the gate?
We didn't really deal with it, to be honest with you. No, they were under some sort of other command. Their only job. Well, okay, so how they did it was the Kurdish army was in charge of the gate.
Gotcha.
And then
they're not
the Georgians were.
Yeah, no offense to the Georgians, they shouldn't
be. Yeah, but they were in charge of perimeter.
Gotcha.
And so that's how that happened.
Gotcha. When I was in Iraq for about 3 months, one of the guys had an idea that maybe I should do tattoos because I drew a bunch of pictures for these guys. And I don't know, within maybe like 4 hours of the idea happening, the money appeared. Grunts are like that. I mean, you were infantry, so you know what it's like to live with a group of.
I'll get a tattoo.
How
from command, but
how quick word spreads and how quick things can get done. And we ordered like today's equivalent of $10,000 worth of tattoo equipment. They shipped it to Iraq, and we built a little tattoo shack and started like doing tattoos.
What did you guys do? Did you guys have like A&D ointment? How did you?
Yeah, well, I used bacitracin, like Neosporin,
right?
And they had they had to keep them covered because we were in the field and it was disgusting. So they had to see me like every day to make sure we didn't get an infection, because the CO knew about it and he said if one person gets an infection, it's done. Yeah,
that's cool. The CO knew about it.
Yeah, well, reservists, dude. It's like a good old boys club. They're all out now. It's all good.
We won't tell anybody.
I think the Don's all right, man. He's retired from the police department and he's living in Florida. Who knows what he's doing, for drinking every day,
having a good time.
Yeah,
enjoying his life.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you get out, and well, at one point you have a kid.
After I get out, yeah.
Okay, so walk me down that.
I came to San Diego, and I got a job putting together furniture, and I was like tattooing at the house and like hanging out at the tattoo shop on all my off time. just learning everything I could and not telling the guy at the tattoo shop that I was tattooing at home because I wasn't allowed to do that.
Right.
And my girlfriend had died in a car wreck, like right after, pretty much right after my child, dude, like maybe a year later. And a girl that I knew, her boyfriend died from an overdose, right? And so she wanted to come and spend some time with me because she wanted to be around somebody who understood what it felt like to lose somebody that you love tragically, right? And she was in a really bad spot, so she came out to San Diego, and uh, I was not like serious with anybody. I mean, I was kind of like just enjoying being home from war. I only hung out with girls for a while because they're just nicer, they smell better, they don't make loud noises, and better company, you know.
Yep.
And she got pregnant. I think that I smiled at her, and an immaculate conception happened. And anyways, well, before that even happened, she was like, "Look, we should go to Yuma because I met her on WTI, and you should meet my friend Doug, who has a tattoo shop. He's really nice. I'm sure he would show you whatever." And so we drove out there so she could see her mom, or like what, I don't remember what it was. And I went to this tattoo shop, and Doug looked at the pictures of tattoos I'd done, and he's like, "Well, dude, if you lived here, I'd just like hire you, show you the ropes." And I was like, "I live here." And so and I moved there and got a job, and then I was still kind of messing with this girl, and um, she got pregnant, and we decided to like try to make that a thing, right? Where it wasn't a thing.
Right.
We're just kind of friends, and I was I didn't want to have kids. I didn't feel that I was ready to give a child the life that I would want to give a child, and I didn't believe that the world was a good or safe place for a child. Still hadn't unpacked a lot of my own stuff, and I was really, really devastated that a kid was coming into the world, and it was my fault, right?
Yeah.
And the whole pregnancy, I was just kind of really, really bummed. And when I saw her, I saw I was the first person she ever saw in the world, and I'm the first person who ever saw her. All of that just melted away, and I didn't care. And I decided to create the world that I want for this baby, the world I want this baby to live in. And so I worked real hard to do that. And stuff didn't work out with me and her mom. Took me till she was 10 years old to get her full time. But whenever we were together, I created that world and gave her everything that I wished I had, and loved her completely and unconditionally. I never experienced love like that or given love like that. Um, and she's just been the best thing in my life for the last 17 years.
She's 17 now.
Yeah.
And then, so you have this kid, you have full custody of her. Talk to me about your journey after everything that you've been through, and you're finally coming to this place where you're building this life for this child, and you're living for this child, and so now you have a purpose that's bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Tattooing, right? The baby, right. And tattooing, because one allows me to give and receive love, right? The other, tattooing, requires focus, 100% focus, and so activation of the prefrontal cortex. I don't know why it's saving my life to do that, but it's exercising this part of my brain. It's something that I want to do, that I enjoy doing, and so I became obsessed with tattooing, being a dad. I still didn't 100% fully remember to talk about everything that happened in my life. I was 38 years old. I was cheating on my girl. I was kind of a bully in my relationships. I didn't. I started to have some pride, right? Some ego pride, where hey, I built this life out of this thing. Nobody gets to tell me what to do. Nobody understands me. I'm a toxic veteran. If you haven't been there, shut up. PTSDs from combat, like all the a really unhealthy position for me. And I wasn't taking care of myself, wasn't eating right, um, wasn't getting exercise, wasn't doing anything nice for myself ever. It was just work, take care of business, and then the basics, right? Um, and it all crumbled. Everything kind of crumbled. And I lost my business. I was living with my girl. She broke up with me. I moved out. I didn't even want to admit, because I'm John Wayne tough guy now, right? Combat veteran, that this ending of this relationship is destroying me. I didn't want to, that abandonment hurt so bad. And I didn't understand why it hurt so bad. Like, why I'm better than this, right? Like, I'm a tough guy. Why am I letting some woman, and I would just say, like, oh, dude, I just saved, over half on my car insurance by switching to single. Like, that's that's how I like, my attitude and my posture. And this pain started to develop, like this internal pain and conflict. And then more and more things in my life were falling apart. And I was lashing out at my friends, and they left, and I was alone. And I was in the attic of that tattoo shop, dude. And I was just like, I just don't want to be here. I don't want to live. I've been in pain for 90 days and I lost 40 pounds. I'm sober, and this is still happening. I lost teeth out of my head. I had a sober blackout and beat the shit out of this guy in a psychosis where I'm glad he lived. It only takes 8 pounds of pressure to break a bone. And any of us is capable of really bad things, doing bad things to other people. And I didn't want to do that. And I blacked out in anger because this guy took a swing at me and beat him almost to death. Right. And so I was afraid to be alone. I didn't want to be with people. It felt like there was a piano wire from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet that was just vibrating. My resting pulse was like 140 beats a minute. And I just wanted it to end. And so I put that gun to my head and I was like, okay, you really, really don't want to be here now. It's time to just pull the trigger. And then I had a vision of my daughter's grandma coming up to her and going, Gracie, your daddy was in an accident and he's not going to come see you. And then a vision later of her finding out that it was a suicide, that I left her. And I was like, fucking, what do I do? Like, I'm in all this pain, but if I pull the trigger, all I do is give that to her. The fuck do I do? And I called my buddy Jake, and he's another vet, and I was like, dude, I'm not in a good place right now. And he said, well, that's cool, man. I got the perfect thing for you. You're going to go to Malibu and you're going to go to Save a Warrior. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that is, dude. I'm telling you I'm in a bad place and you're talking to me about Save a Warrior. What the fuck, dude? Fuck you. He goes, no, dude. Like, trust me. This is the thing that you need to do. Like, figure it out. I'll get you in next week. And I'm like, next week? And I'm like, Jake Sweat.
Jake Sweat.
Yeah.
Shout out to you, Jake Sweat.
Yeah, Jake Sweat's a badass.
Oh, yeah.
He's a good dude.
Good.
And so I'm kind of hemming and hawing about going because I'm like, well, I can't just leave my business. I can't just get up and go. And then Brian Haggerty called me from the program and he's like, he goes, listen to me, like, on the phone. So I'm like, oh, I gotta work. I got tattoos to do. He goes, listen to me. He goes, what good is any of that if you're dead? Because we're talking about your life, dude. Get your ass in the car and come up here. So hung up the phone, got in the car, started to drive, and that letting go and like realizing that I'm getting help now. I didn't cry a lot before that, man. Like, I was able to cry a little bit earlier when we were talking about Thomas. That was stopped up for like a while. And my eyes started to leak when I'm like driving up to Malibu, and we get there, and I'm such a wreck, dude, that I'm like having like body jerks, and I can't focus and concentrate. I'm tired. I'm hungry, like dehydrated, completely psychotic. And they're like, okay, we're going to meditate. I'm like, I can't meditate. What are you talking about? And they're like, Jake, he's like, Forrest, don't be a pussy. Sit down. I'm like, all right, I can understand that. And so we sit and we start breathing and doing this meditation where we're like touching our thumb and index finger, thumb and ring finger, the thumb and pinky finger. We're touching our fingers together and thinking, oh, wow, my body's like jerking all over the place. And get food. We meet with each other. The scenery is beautiful. Get together with the guys. We start to go through this process. And by the third day, I'm feeling like some relief and I'm starting to feel good. And so those guys created a rendition of an ancient technology that human beings have practiced since the beginning of human beings called initiation. And the requirements for initiation are for returning from war or trauma initiation, ceremonies held in a closed container, guided by elders, on sacred ground, face your own death, receive a transitional object. Like that's the way you create a process that a human will respond to. And they did that. And dude, like I went back home and I saw the shrink again after the 5 days, and she goes, "Do you think you might be bipolar?" Because I was so bad and then so good immediately after this process. And I was like, no, it's just like I've had diarrhea for 30 years and now I don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the only thing that we talked about at Save a Warrior, I thought we were going to go there and like they're going to film us crying, talking about the war, like, you know, all that crap.
Yeah.
The only thing we talked about our lives was what it was like until we were 18. And each person had exactly 5 minutes to share that. So there was no bullshitting. Like they said what happened. And 13 guys, dude. I'm one of 13. And every single one of those guys had been molested like me, or beat up like me, or neglected like me, or abandoned like me, or had just some gnarly thing in the beginning. And I was like, oh, holy shit. We're all blaming this on the war and the military as being so traumatic when the military probably saved a lot of our lives. And then it went away and we didn't have that solution anymore. And then became suicidal.
So that wasn't your ayahuasca.
No,
trip,
that was
right?
different. Yeah.
So let's walk through that a little
So
bit.
ayahuasca was before Save a Warrior, and I just couldn't even like begin to visit the possibility of forgiving myself for Thomas's death. And I still didn't really understand what forgiveness was. People kept on telling me I needed to do it. And this one dude I knew said, look, I think that this ayahuasca thing will help you. I didn't take it lightly, like going and doing a drug as a sober man.
Yeah.
I thought about it for a few months and then decided that since like a shaman who learned stuff in the Amazon is doing it, it's like their equivalent of a doctor prescribed by a doctor, right? And what is my intention? I'm not going there to get high. I'm not going there for recreation. I'm going to do this ceremony so that I can figure out this forgiveness thing. And so I went and I felt forgiven afterwards. I felt like there was hope and possibility for me. And it took me up until, man, right after I finished writing the book to actually figure out what forgiveness is.
So you did the ayahuasca. What was the feeling coming out of that trip?
Well, first I felt like shit. But then,
Did you?
yeah, because it's heavy duty. Like I was throwing up and coming out the other end too, and you know it's a lot of work. And I think that I'm not like I don't have the right words, but I think what that did is open the door for me to do a lot more work, right? To question, to take my ego out of the conversation when I'm working on myself, right? Like, what's my purpose? What do I matter, right? Um, of course I matter. Every word that we say is a prayer. Prayer happens all the time. Every time we speak, we're the only creature who can speak intelligently, right? I mean, parrots or, some animals can repeat, but we are the only ones who have that power to make this vibration with our lungs and throat and mouth. And everything that I say affects the world for 7 generations. Every single one of us says. Words have tremendous power. How am I using them? Right? Realizations like that started to happen. And I mean, I wish there was like just one defining moment happened, but there was a series of hundreds of defining moments, and ayahuasca was just one of them.
Yeah, so that was, so I've looked at the ayahuasca for I've never done it, but uh I'm curious to know if there's a significant change in your mental state as well as a lasting change.
I think there was more of a lasting change than a significant change. So I think that when one of the things Dr. John said, he said, there will be homework.
What does that mean?
You will have assignments when you leave here. There will be many things you have to do, or you are assigned to do when you leave here to address whatever the reason is that you're here. This is not the end all answer. This is the beginning. So it's the beginning of a really long journey of a lot of homework.
And what was the homework for you?
So the homework was going to save a warrior. The homework was learning how to redefine honesty and integrity.
So that was just the opening of the door.
Yeah, to start meditating, to start questioning what I'm doing in my life, what matters to me, what is for the betterment of everybody, right? What is a warrior? What is a servant? And it started to it gave me an opportunity to open some doors and start down paths like learning what is forgiveness, right? What's forgiveness, bro? I'm asking you. I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah,
on purpose.
I would say forgiveness is is to allow the feeling that somebody has caused you to pass.
Yeah, how the fuck do you do that?
It's a good question.
Okay. Resentment is a mirror, right?
Mm-hmm.
Resentment is not the same as anger or irritation. Resentment is something I see in someone that really fucking bothers me. I fucking hate how you eat like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're a manipulator. You are a narcissist. Anytime I'm doing that, I'm looking at myself because I don't like this thing about myself and I haven't addressed it yet. That's what resentment is. It's a strong feeling of distaste or anger towards something that I reflect in somebody. It's the same as the flip side is admiration, right? Mm-hmm. And the other side of forgiveness is abandoning revenge. So it's not a thing that I do or I release or I'm just all done. Forgiveness is like a pool of water that I can get into. Dude, I could get out and shoot the pedophile in the head and then get back in, right? But the more I can stay in forgiveness, the better off I am in my life. So it's clearing resentment and abandoning revenge. It doesn't have anything to do with feelings. Doesn't have anything to do with letting the person in your life. Doesn't have anything to do. It's an action, right? If I can acknowledge that I'm doing this thing that I don't like that you do, and I can rectify it in myself, it won't bother me when you do it anymore.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, that does make sense. And so that's all part of your journey sent through to get past all of the trauma
to move through.
To move through it. Is there anything else that you want to talk about going through?
Yeah. So another part of forgiveness. So I use systems are pretty easy for me to understand and use. So the 5 pillars of self-care, right? So I am not in forgiveness of myself I am not taking care of myself. Therefore, I'm not going to function properly if I'm not practicing these. So, 5 pillars of self care, like a table with 5 legs: eat, sleep, exercise, medical care, self love. I can get away without eating one day and I still got 4 legs, right? I can get away without exercising for a couple weeks. I still got 4 legs. I can get away without doing any self care. But if I don't get enough sleep and then I didn't eat and then I haven't exercised in a while, the table's only on 2 legs. It's falling over, right?
Right.
So we don't have to do this shit perfect, but eat, sleep, exercise, medical care, hygiene. 5 pillars of servant leadership, right? Service to other people, study, reading something or listening to something or absorbing something that has spiritual wisdom that I didn't think of. Acknowledgement, right? Like being grateful for people, places, things, creatures in my life. Um, Contribution, so giving a portion of my money to something who does work that I support. And um, affirmation or prayer, right? Speaking with purpose, whether it's praying to a God or saying things out loud that I want to envision to happen in my life. Um, those systems like that help me put together a life that's like manageable and happy. Dude, I've got a good life. Like I live in a beautiful place. I've got a beautiful family. Of course, like it's
So what are you doing now?
well, now I'm sitting at a podcast, hanging out with my homeboy.
Way to be present.
But I'm tattooing
Mhm.
and I'm starting to speak. I just got invited to be a volunteer member of the RAIN Speakers Bureau. So RAIN is the Rape and Incest Survivors National Network. I think that's what they're called, but they're a gigantic organization that helps people. I'm pretty active on social media where I share stories and recovery with people so that they know they're not alone. The best, dude. Uh, this little kid saw my TikTok video, and I just filmed myself like riding my motorcycle near the ocean, and it said, "Hey, little brother, what they did to you doesn't affect whether or not you're a man. Like, nobody can ever take your manhood away, even if they molested you, even if they did bad things to you. What makes a man is the truth and integrity. Nobody can ever take that away from you." And this little boy saw it and then talked to his buddy, and they decided that they were going to tell his mom that the neighbor was molesting like 7 of them. He saw it.
Shit.
And the messages that I get from sharing publicly about
Yeah.
that stuff, like
It
there's,
kind of feels so good.
dude, hell yeah, are you kidding me?
Man, no, I couldn't.
And other messages I get from people that say, just the sharing, and I get a lot of hate too, like whatever. There's some lady on there. People say the darndest things, like they're like, "Oh, you're profiting off of your best friend dying."
Yeah, they're the
And I'm like,
keyboard warriors.
cool, like where's the profit though, bro? Like,
Can I get some of that?
right?
Are you
Once they
offering
get
this
rich,
profit
bro,
we
like,
speak of?
I spent like 65 grand making that book.
Really?
Oh yeah, dude.
Wow.
Like editors and voice actors and all this stuff over the years to get it done.
Yeah.
th-
So show me the profit, lady.
Yeah, there's no profit there, bro. That's a pretty big in the red.
Yeah.
And I thought that like
The
Oprah Winfrey's book club
the
came
profit that you're getting is the love. And,
Yeah.
And the fact that you're able to get your message out there and help somebody.
and the deeper reflection, right?
Right.
Because if I'm teaching something, I better know it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's how we learn the best, right?
Absolutely. I'm teaching a class in St. Louis
Are you?
next week. Yeah, Focus Marines Foundation.
Nice.
Really, really cool program. And I went through it and they helped me write my book. And I'm teaching my very first class ever, dude. I'm kind of nervous. Like I'm going to be like a teacher.
Did you ever teach a class in the military? No death by PowerPoint.
No, I never did that. I mean, I showed the Marines how to do like buddy aid and stuff like that, but I never did like the PowerPoint things. I spoke on base and I used the PowerPoint.
We used to do classes a lot. We would teach the fundamentals of infantry fundamentals, and so we would give classes on how to shoot the AT-4. I was combatives. I did combatives with the Army, and they had me go back and teach some of our guys.
Did they fall asleep?
No.
Dude, I wish, like sometimes when I can't sleep, I wish I had somebody in uniform with a PowerPoint standing by my
Oh
bed.
God,
I would just knock right out.
The worst ones are the weekend briefs where you're getting ready to go on block leave or something, and
Yeah.
then they just they pile everybody into the big ass auditorium, and then they just some dumbass up there giving a freaking PowerPoint presentation. He doesn't want to do it, but he's doing it anyway.
Yeah.
But so where can everybody get in touch with you, and how can they get your book?
So you can get it at angelbluebook.com or forrestlang.com. Or you can find it on Amazon, Angel Blue, A Song of Redemption. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. My email is forrest@angelbluebook.com. I do my best to respond to all messages and be there as much as humanly possible for others while still taking care of myself.
Right.
Please don't call me when you're drunk, dude. We're
not going to put your phone number on.
Oh no, but I think the ones that know me, man, stop that. Call me like 2 a.m.
Oh man,
I feel bad because I'm not answering the phone. I already took Seroquel, bro. I'm not gonna go back.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, it was good having you on here. Is there anything else? Is there anything that you would say to somebody who's going through what you've been through, who is thinking about the next steps for them?
Okay, so it depends, right? Who I'm talking to, because a lot of times women are more likely to go seek out therapy and stuff like that. I don't know what your audience is. There's nothing weak or lame or dumb or anything negative about getting a therapist, right? Like if you eat crayons, I want to put it to you like this. A therapist is like a spiritual prostitute. Okay? So you go and you give the therapist the money and they provide a space for you to talk about your shit. Right? There's nothing bad or negative about that. You don't have to do this stuff perfect, right? None of us is going to do any of this crap perfect. We don't compete with other people when it comes to like recovery from this stuff. We're really, I mean, yeah, we compete with others when we're racing or whatever, but a true athlete, a true warrior, a true servant leader is going to really compete with themselves, right? And how do I treat myself with kindness? How do I offer myself discipline? And how do I offer myself love? The same thing you'd want to give to your children, right? Like, what are the best things we can give our children? Love and discipline.
Right.
Right. And without hurting them in the process. So we offer these same things to ourselves.
Perfect.
Yeah.